We've all heard the same story. Rome fell because it weakened, because of decline, because of corruption. But that's a convenient lie. The truth is infinitely more brutal. Rome didn't fall. Rome was hunted. It wasn't an accident, an economic crisis, or a philosopher writing sad verses. It was murder, one that took 300 years to complete, and ended with blood, fire, and screams echoing outside the Colosseum. And if you think you know this story, brace yourself, because what you're about to hear is the version Rome tried to bury. The year is 376 AD. On the Danube frontier, thousands of people await permission to enter the empire. They are not soldiers. They are not merchants. They are refugees. Men, women, the elderly, and children. All members of a people the Romans called the Barbarians, the Goths. They are fleeing something that will change everything. The Huns, the demonic horsemen who raze entire villages, leaving no survivors. The Roman officials agree to let them cross. But they make the first fatal mistake. They fail to control how many enter. They are not hundreds, they are not thousands, they are hundreds of thousands. An entire nation entering the most powerful empire in history, hungry, frightened, and armed. Rome has just opened its main gate, and it doesn't know it yet. The Romans promise to feed the newcomers, but they don't. Instead, officials sell rotten meat in exchange for the children of the Goths. Yes, literally, Gothic children sold into slavery in exchange for rationed food. The tension breaks. The young Gothic leader Fritigern does the unthinkable. He turns his refugees into an army. Hidden swords, unwavering loyalty, a hatred fueled by Roman betrayal. In less than a year, the barbarians aren't integrating, they're marching. They called it a battle, they called it a defeat, they called it a tragedy. But the truth is simpler. Adrianople was the moment Rome died. Not physically, not immediately, but spiritually. This isn't an exaggeration. This isn't dramatization. This is fact. Because on that day, August 9th, 378 AD, Rome lost something far more important than an emperor, far more devastating than a legion, far more humiliating than a battlefield. Rome lost the illusion that it was invincible. Before Adrianople, every Roman believed the same myth. No barbarian army can defeat us, ever. After Adrianople, that lie dissolved in blood and dust. To understand the disaster, you must understand the man who caused it. Valens, the Eastern Roman emperor, was not a monster. He was worse. An insecure leader desperate for a victory that would make Rome respect him. When the Goths rebelled, after years of Roman abuse and starvation, Valens saw not a crisis, but an opportunity. A chance to prove himself. A chance to silence rivals. A chance to show that he too could win glory like past emperors. The Western Emperor, Gratian, offered to bring reinforcements. Valens refused. He didn't want to share the credit. He didn't want to wait. He didn't want the victory to belong to anyone but him. And so, without strategy, without preparation, and blinded by ambition, Valens marched his army into the worst trap Rome had seen in centuries. Even before reaching Adrianople, the signs were there. Signs every general should have recognized. Signs every soldier felt in their bones. Gothic scouts moving too calmly. Roman supply lines mysteriously disappearing. Strange dust storms in the distance. Gothic cavalry nowhere to be seen. And the biggest sign of all, silence. No ambushes, no harassment, no sudden attacks. Just an unnatural calm. The kind of stillness that only happens when an army is waiting for you. But Valens ignored all of it. When his scouts warned him of Gothic cavalry approaching from the north, he assumed they were exaggerating. When his officers begged for patience, he accused them of cowardice. When soldiers complained of heat and exhaustion, he silenced them. Valens didn't want information. He wanted glory. And glory never comes to those who demand it. The opening of the battle wasn't heroic. It wasn't noble. It wasn't even planned. It was a mistake. A Roman unit, frustrated, overheated, and blinded by dust, charged forward without orders. A single unit, a single decision, a single spark, and the world collapsed. The Roman line crumbled forward. Officers screamed. Standards tilted. Trumpets blasted warnings, not commands. Across the field, Gothic warriors rose from behind wagons and shields, their formation surging like a wave. The trap had sprung. The Romans believed they were attacking a disorganized refugee camp. Instead, they struck a solid wall of Gothic infantry, fighting for their families, their lives, their revenge. The Goths were not fighting for territory. They were not fighting for gold. They were fighting because Rome had starved their children and enslaved their daughters. Nothing is more dangerous than warriors with nothing left to lose. Their line didn't break. It expanded. It engulfed the Romans like a closing fist. And then came the moment Rome had feared for centuries. A thunder in the distance, a vibration in the earth, a sound every soldier recognized instantly. Cavalry, massive cavalry, fast, heavy, relentless. Valens had fallen for the oldest trick in the book. The Gothic cavalry slammed into the Roman flank with the force of a collapsing mountain. The legion buckled, then cracked, then shattered. From this moment onward, the battlefield is no longer a battle. It is an execution. Picture it. Roman soldiers crushed between their own lines and Gothic shields. Men unable to lift swords because bodies pressed them from all sides. Horses screaming, trampling armor and flesh alike. Heat suffocating, dust blinding, fear suffocating. The Roman formation collapses inward. A giant metal knot of panic. Historians describe it as claustrophobic slaughter. Romans couldn't run. They couldn't fight. They couldn't breathe. The Gothic cavalry circled them like predators. Every gap filled, every escape cut off. Every Roman officer targeted. This wasn't a defeat. It was annihilation. When the dust settled, 2/3 of the Roman army lay dead. Officers, generals, veterans, elite units. The empire had no replacement, no reserve, no plan. Adrianople destroyed more than soldiers. It destroyed the idea that Rome could always recover. From this point forward, Rome was no longer the hunter. Rome was the prey. The world had changed forever. And the barbarians, the same people Rome once humiliated, now marched with the confidence of victors. They had defeated an emperor. They had broken the Roman myth. They had shattered the strongest army in the East. Rome was exposed, vulnerable, bleeding. And the barbarians began to see a truth Rome had tried to hide for centuries. Rome could fall, and they could be the ones to do it. For centuries, Rome was untouchable. Its walls, its wealth, its armies, its arrogance built on endless conquests. But after Adrianople, the barbarians understood something that would change the fate of the world. Rome bleeds. Rome grows weary. Rome can fall. And then someone arrives who knows exactly how to do it. Alaric, a Gothic leader with a dangerous obsession. To enter Rome not as an invader, but as a victor. For years he plunders, negotiates, blackmails, and pressures. Rome pays in gold. Rome pays in wheat. Rome pays with humiliation. But a day comes when they have nothing left to give. That day, the gates of Rome open, and the barbarians enter. The road to Rome was not a military march. It was a trial. Every city that surrendered without a fight was a reminder that Roman authority was a phantom. Every Roman soldier who fled was an admission of weakness. Every failed negotiation reopened the wound that Rome refused to see. The Goths did not fear Rome. Rome feared the Goths. And when an empire built on fear loses control of that fear, it loses everything. When Alaric approached the walls of Rome, the city did not understand what was happening. Rome had been attacked thousands of times in its history, but never by an external enemy that was already within its own empire. The Romans believed in the immortality of their city. They believed their walls were blessed. They believed no barbarian could go that far. But that night, as the towers lit their torches and the bells rang in the forum, Rome understood the truth. The ancient world had ended, and the unconquerable city was about to face the destiny it had avoided for centuries.
For the drive! Move! Incoming! My leg! Loca capite! Retirete acem! Omnia parata! Percutite muros! They're firing! Get down! Save yourself!
Rome always believed that danger lived far away, at the ends of the earth, beyond the rivers, the deserts, the forests. But when the messengers arrived, pale, trembling, covered in dust, the Senate knew the world had changed. Alaric was in Italy, not in Pannonia, not in Thrace, not in Dacia. In Italy, sacred land, the heart of the empire. That day, the temples remained open all night. The bells rang out across the 7 hills. The matrons prayed to gods they knew were deaf. Rome had lost wars before, but it had never known fear. Until that day. In the forum, the senators argued like frightened children. How has he gotten so far? Where is Stilicho? Why isn't the emperor summoning the legions? Why isn't anyone stopping this? The answer was simple. Because there was no one left capable of stopping him. Stilicho, the only competent general in the empire, was caught in a web of political intrigue, false accusations, and the relentless pressure of an incompetent court. And while Rome fractured from within, Alaric advanced calmly, without haste, like someone who already knew that victory was inevitable. And then, what Rome never thought possible happened. The walls, those that had withstood centuries of wars, earthquakes, and conspiracies, began to tremble. Not from catapults, not from fire, not from gods, but from wear and tear, from neglect. When the breach finally opened, the barbarians did not advance like an uncontrolled horde. They entered with a firm, determined, almost solemn step, like men who knew they were holding history in their hands. Many expected to see a resplendent city. What they found was an empty, silent, frightened city. The wide streets, once bustling with commerce, parades, and politics, were now deserted passageways where only the footsteps of the invaders could be heard, and the wind-rattling statues that watched the end of their world. Rome, eternal Rome, watched its new owners cross its front door, as if they had returned home. The barbarians arrived at the temples first, because they knew where Rome kept its treasures. Altars covered in pure gold, immense candelabras, chests filled with jewels brought from Egypt, Syria, and Hispania. There was no gratuitous violence, only inevitability. The temples that had once been places of glory became makeshift warehouses for plunder. The marble was ripped out, and most humiliating of all, no one did anything to stop it. The temples that had once been places of glory became makeshift warehouses for plunder. The marble was ripped out, the metals melted down, the relics wrapped in cloaks and loaded onto carts. Rome, which had plundered the world, now saw its own world being plundered. While the looters filled sacks with gold and silver, the streets filled with Roman citizens, the barbarians weren't seeking to exterminate anyone. They sought dominion, and dominion means control. Waned when the invaders planted their banners on the Capitoline Hill, when bonfires illuminated the looted temples, when smoke rose into the night sky. Rome ceased to be eternal. That was the precise moment the empire ceased to exist, not militarily, not politically, but spiritually. The ancient world died there, in that tense silence, in that utter humiliation. Rome was not destroyed, it was replaced. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the sacked city, a thought echoed throughout the empire. If Rome could fall, we all can. The walls, the temples, the treasures, everything that defined Roman power had been reduced to rubble, smoke, and fear. It wasn't just a sacking, it was a message. One so powerful, it would change the course of history. Empires don't die from external enemies. They die from within. They die when they stop listening. They die when they abandon their people. Rome fell that night, not because of the barbarians, but because it had been falling for decades. The barbarians merely opened the final door, and the world was never the same again. Rome didn't fall in a single day. It fell silently, long before the barbarians crossed its walls. That day didn't just mark the sacking of a city, it marked the end of an era, proof that no empire is untouchable, because Rome wasn't destroyed. Rome had weakened from within, and that's the lesson. Empires don't fall when someone attacks them. They fall when they stop protecting what made them great. If you're not following me, you probably won't see me again. If you are, congratulations. Get ready to discover what very few know. See you in the next episode.